the other component, that is the n vivo. So I think now I should start the first component, because it's a long presentation. Different important concepts are there, maybe a brief discussion on the philosophy of qualitative research as well, and then we'll be moving towards the practical or hands-on training on n vivo as well. So I think everybody can see these slides now. Just a moment, there's a problem, I think, in unmuting the participants. So anyone who can unmute, there's some issue in unmuting participants. So I'll fix it. That what is the problem? If you can see these slides, simply someone raise the hand or give some sort of maybe expression that. So now I think everybody can hear me, and so now I'll be sharing the slides. So can you see these slides now?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes,
So
sir,
now
we can.
kindly mute your mic, so I don't have to mute you again, because that creates problems.
Yes, sir.
Presentation, there is a mostly there is a noise. That's why I have to mute the participants. So currently I'm not muting them. So please, everyone, try to mute your mics so I can start this presentation without any sort of distortion or problem. Now,
yeah, could you just turn on the chat, please? Because then it would make it easy to send a message without unmuting ourselves. Would that be possible?
Okay, I'll open it, because when I opened, there was a lot of discussion among the participants. So I thought it's better to focus on presentation. But in case any problem, I'll open the chat as well.
Yeah, it would help to have the chat on, because then instead of trying to unmute ourselves and interrupt you, we could just type, and then when you have the time, you can take a look.
Okay.
Yes, that's a good idea.
Okay, I'm opening the chat option.
Thank you so much.
So now you can text me only. People cannot talk among themselves, but they can send me a text in case there is some issue or problem. Okay, qualitative research. So most of the people who are attending today's workshop, they have attended other ones as well. So brief introduction about myself. My name is Dr. Sajid Bashir, and currently I'm working as head of business studies in a university or institute, which is Naval Institute in Mianwali, Pakistan. Earlier, I've been working in Islamabad in different universities for around 20 years. So my main area of expertise is organizational behavior, and my publications or research, everything is in the OB domain. And also I have supervised so far around 17 PhD students, all in OB domain. I think one in consumer behavior and all other in organizational behavior, and around 125-30 master's level students. My main expertise is in quantitative research, but as I earlier mentioned, I've been working in the qualitative side as well, and I've practically developed some reports for some consultants and also for some government organizations as well, which were purely on qualitative side. And then I realized the potential of qualitative analysis and how important this analysis is. So I've been teaching this subject in different research classes as well. And the objective of this workshop is to discuss qualitative study or analysis a bit differently. So en vivo is an important part of this workshop, but firstly I'll start with a different type of you can say opinion or a perspective about qualitative research, which when I have discussed it with different students in classes, or generally when I conduct any sort of workshop and I discuss, people, they found that this is something interesting. This is something different from the normal workshops or normal videos which are available on qualitative study. So you can search it out on even YouTube. Most of the videos are of similar nature. I don't really find a difference if I want to find out something different about qualitative research from these videos. So it's very hard or difficult to find out the difference. So I'll start my presentation. That is generally the main structure of a normal presentation or workshop which we conduct. We'll discuss about what is qualitative research and which problems should be used in qualitative research, and how to write a sort of, if you want to write its purpose statement, and what are the main traditions in this domain, how to collect qualitative data, and how to sort of identify the themes in qualitative research, and ultimately how to use a software. So this is a generic structure of any workshop on qualitative research. But the first part, what is qualitative research? I'll take a lot of time in this area to explain that what actually is qualitative research. And then I think we can discuss the other components, like how to collect data, and maybe if you are going for focus group or observation method or interview method, what is the difference in that method, or how to collect data and then to analyze it. There is a very, I won't say popular theorem, but interesting theorem, which was presented way back in 1928, around 100 or 90 years back, which explains the whole philosophy of qualitative research or qualitative methodology which we use. And it was by Thomas and Thomas in 1928, which at that time was commonly known as Thomas theorem. Again, it is not popular, but very important. I think people who have got interest in philosophy and research, because I don't teach or even do research in any area unless I'm not clear about philosophy of that research. So you have to relate philosophy with research at every step. Then you can, I think, be clear about these concepts. So Thomas and Thomas said that if men define situations as real, they are real in their consequences. Put somewhat differently, what people think is real might as well be real, since it affects people as though it were real. So I think some people might be confused that what is being discussed here, especially the master's level student, if you have not studied philosophy in detail or philosophy of research in detail. But in philosophy, generally we are always concerned about the reality and what is real thing. So Thomas and Thomas said that if someone decides or someone describes a situation as real, they are real in consequences. So the consequences, they are linked with the definition of situation, how you are defining it. So reality, in fact, is linked, as per this theorem, which we generally discuss, is with different factors. And one of them is that how you define it. And that definition definitely is linked with the perception, how perception about that situation is developed. And with that perception, you can have the similar outcomes or consequences. So I'll again come to this slide. Now I'll be moving ahead to explain what basically Thomas and Thomas in this Thomas theorem, they tried to explain, or what they wanted to say. So after around 1928, now I've taken a citation from 2014 by Woodman, who said that people carry implicit theories in their minds concerning almost all aspects of their reality, and their behavior is based, at least in part, on these theories or understandings about how things are related to each other, how the world works, why others behave as they do, and so on. So Woodman also almost said the same thing which Thomas and Thomas said in 1928. The world around us, we are having implicit theories about the world which is around us, and whatever we do, or whatsoever perception we are someone is has just texted that the slides are not visible. So I hope slides are visible. So if someone can confirm in chat. Okay. So this citation is also suggesting something, that whatever we do, we have got some implicit theories in our minds, and based on these implicit theories, our behavior or things around us, how things are related with each other and how others behave, everything is linked with this thing. Now I'll relate it later with this concept, that why it is linked with qualitative research, and what is the main limitation of quantitative research, that we have to go for qualitative research, because quantitative research is a very popular form of research and everybody is talking about that research, and we also prefer to go for it. Then why there is a need to go for qualitative research, and how these concepts are linked with qualitative research. So I'll be moving forward. This is another interesting concept which basically motivates us to go for qualitative research. So you can capture a lot of information through quantitative research, but there are certain things which quantitative research can never find out. So this is a sort of picture, you can say, or portrait, which was developed by Magritte, a French painter, who painted this pipe. And tertiary of images, this concept is called. And in French, whatever is written here, it means that this is not a pipe. So he painted, it is still there in, I think, British Museum of Arts or something like that. This picture is still there with same words. And the thing written under it is, this is not a pipe, while it actually is a pipe. So what basically this person, Megrete, tried to explain is that the famous pipe, how people reproached me for it, and yet could you stuff this thing and stuff my pipe? No, it's just a representation. It is not. So if I had written on my picture, this is a pipe, I had been lying. So again, a bit of philosophical discussion, but he said that this is not a pipe. It is just a representation of pipe. And if I had written here that this is a pipe, I would have been lying. Okay, why said this and how it is linked with qualitative research? So this concept, treachery of images. There is a complete sort of paradigm or a component of philosophy which is called surrealism, and this person René Magritte was a surrealist painter, and their main objective of this, I'll just explain what is this surrealism. Once painted a smoker's pipe in the middle of canvas and called the painting, "This is not a pipe." Like most surrealists, Magritte was making an elegant joke about the unreliability of our sense of perception. That is the main thing which I wanted to discuss here, that the data which we collect using our perception or our senses, how much reliable that is. And the data generally which we collect using any means, what are the issues or problems with its reliability? This is not a pipe, he argued, but a two-dimensional representation of pipe, which is not the same thing. However, implying that these aspects are more important than the personal, social, cultural, economic, embodied, spiritual, and any other phenomena that influences our understanding of our surrounding. Now, this surrealism is sort of complete cultural movement which developed in Europe in the aftermath of World War. The movement is best known for its visual artwork and writings and juxtaposition of uncommon imagery. Artists painted unwearing, illogical scenes, sometimes with photographic precision, creating strange creatures from everyday objects and developing painting techniques that allowed the unconscious to express itself. So mainly how you interpret any image or how you interpret any picture, that is totally a subjective thing. Now, if we relate this discussion with the earlier Thomas theorem, if men define situation as real, they are real in their consequences. And then by Woodman, people carry implicit theories in their minds concerning almost all aspects of their reality, and their behavior is based on these theories. And then you link this thing with this image of pipe, that this is not a pipe. Then philosophically, we are in a state or stage where we are ambivalent, or we are not clear that how actually to interpret this image. What actually is this image? I have got a sort of theoretical imaging in my mind, or theories or implicit theories about all the things in my mind. Everybody in this workshop is having a different type of perception or implicit theories in the mind. And once we report something, so let's say one is trying to collect data from these 160 participants, and based on that data, if something is reported that this is the reality of this phenomenon, so whether that will be real, this is a big question mark. What I said in the beginning, that we don't ask these questions. We are more concerned about, this is qualitative research, this is quantitative research. You will find a slide, 10 points for quantitative, 10 for qualitative. That's it, that's the difference. But why there is a difference? What was the need if this quantitative approach or positivism was so popular and everybody was using this thing? Why there was a need? Why Thomas and Thomas has to develop this concept? Why other researchers or this movement, cultural movement, and all these concepts, what they basically wanted to point out, that if you overemphasize on the data or on the subject reality, it is subjective objective, that debate I'll also discuss, and based on perception of different people or individuals, if you try to reach at one conclusion and try to find out one reality out of maybe 100 or 1,000 different perceptions, how you can find out one reality? Because the movement, the positivism, which started around 400 years back, the main focus was that we can find out one reality. And all the scientific development people, they related with the positivism or modernism. Yes, it did wonders. All the technological development, everything is generally linked with modernism or positivism or data collection using scientific methodology. But can it explain everything? Even in sciences, I've seen so much criticism on this modernism or positivism, that in medicine, how it created problems, or in other sciences. But I think people who are attending this workshop, I think majority are from social sciences. We deal with human beings, either in psychology or in organizational behavior or in consumer behavior or in any other field, we deal with human beings. So when we apply the positivism or quantitative method on human beings, and we try to find out one reality using any type of statistical technique or analysis technique, so how much reliable and valid that outcome is, whether it should be accepted and how much reliable it should be considered. That was the main point which all these people, which all these philosophers, they emphasized. So I don't think anybody said that quantitative method is bad or it should be abandoned. Even today we cannot say. I am advocating right now qualitative research, while I have conducted mainly all the studies using quantitative method. So that is a common method, that is a popular method, but should we be using or always be using quantitative method? We should not consider any other option, or if option is there, we should simply relate it, okay, it is another methodology. So what's the difference? Normally what people they teach in classes, or again, I'm a bit irritated with the most of the videos on YouTube. So they will tell you the difference. Okay, if you are using quantitative method, you'll be using a questionnaire. If you're using qualitative method, you'll be using an interview. So that's the difference. There, the data will be collected maybe using a questionnaire, or it will be analyzed, and you will have to apply different analysis techniques. Here, you will have to develop themes, and it appears that there is a little bit of difference in method, and almost both things are same. That is not the reality. Again, I'm using a big word. That is my perception of reality. But there's a major difference. That's qualitative research is a different world. You can by no way compare it with quantitative method. Maybe there are commonalities as well, but once you have focused to identify something using a qualitative methodology, even your implicit theories of mind, how I have to move forward, I have to collect the data, if you have heard about the concept of reflexivity. So you are not someone who has nothing to do with data collection. You are not an alien that I have to just depend on the questionnaire. So I upload it on maybe MTurk, Amazon MTurk, or using Google Forms or anything, and I'll collect data, and I've collected data from 500 people, and this is the analysis. So in this whole data collection process, the most important thing when you are capturing the perceptions or people's opinion, where is the researcher? He's relaxing at home, maybe having a chat with friends, and data is being collected. So what is his or her role in this process? Qualitative research requires your whole attention in this process or in this method. You have to be part of that process, like we have discussed in even in experimental design, that how you can use experimental design, and what is the requirement of the person who is conducting the experiment to be involved in this process. I think qualitative research, right from the beginning, all these steps of research, the qualitative researcher has to be part of this process. And during this process, what are different issues he has faced, how he has interacted with people. So someone texted that the slide, it has got frozen. No, it's not frozen. I'm moving ahead. I'm just trying to link different things together, ultimately to reach at a point. And if in today's session, if I'm just able to explain you the concept behind this qualitative research and why qualitative research required and why it's different, I think the objective will be achieved, because maybe there are some good researchers who have studied research with this methodology. Otherwise, I was not fortunate enough to study research in this method. So when I was taught the difference between qualitative research and quantitative research, so that was the methodology which I did just discuss, that there was a slide by the teacher with 10 points on the same slide. So on left side there was quantitative research, and right side there was qualitative research. So I'll also show you the same slide, and these are the 10 differences. So after studying, I said, oh, there's not much difference between two methods. So if I'm asking a question in a questionnaire, so if I don't write that question on the questionnaire, and if I ask that question verbally to a person, it will become a qualitative research. So that was my thinking or my perception of qualitative research. So you have to simply ask question. If you cannot, if you don't have time, so you distribute it on the questionnaire, so you can collect data from 500 people. And if you have time and you're free, like these days we are free and we're having time, so it's a good way even to pass time and to talk with people and simply ask questions through interviews. And that is just a change of this method. That was my perception. But when I studied people like this concept of Thomas and all this surrealism and all these movements, that how people, they try to interpret reality and what's the difference, then I realized that that difference is not simple. There is a huge difference in these two concepts. So different people, they are raising hand. I'll be taking question because I think, I'm afraid I'm very slow. I'm moving very slow because there are a number of slides. We are on slide number 7 and we're having, I think, more than 40 slides. So let me complete some basic components initially, then definitely I'll take questions. So for the time being, I think if I start taking questions, you just note down the questions and I'll take all the questions. But for the time being, let me complete this initial discussion. So I'm trying to reach at one conclusion. So moving ahead from this discussion, reality, that is something which we normally discuss, that whether it lies within or it externally, it is within us or it lies externally. So that's the difference between the positivism and social constructionism. There is a method which is called induction and deduction. So whether it is based on subjective or objective reality, modernism, a very popular move, social constructionism, and then the most important thing is that not everything can be quantified. So I'll discuss these points in detail in the next slide, but these are normal things when we study about research or terminologies. We discuss about induction, deduction. So all these concepts are linked with the qualitative and quantitative research. Moving ahead, so what's the difference? So this is something which normally people tell. I'll just tell you one difference between qualitative and qualitative research. Maybe there are other points as well, but this is for me the main difference. In quantitative research grounded on positivism. So positivism, I think most of the people must be clear, but again, that is my perception of reality. Positivism, it started in around 1600 or 1700 something, initially by Galileo and other people who started using scientific methodology or experiments to find out reality. And ultimately, there was this whole move, which was ultimately, I think it became popular when Newton used this approach for his laws, and so mainly it is a scientific methodology of finding out reality, generally which we call the hypothetical deductive method, where we develop hypotheses, we collect data, and then we analyze it. That is a quantitative research which is grounded on positivism and emphasizes deductive reasoning. We just use this word, we use deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is based on some data and a single objective reality. Ultimate objective is to reach at one reality. So whatsoever method you're using, you have to reach at one conclusion. So that's why it is based on external data. When you collect data, when you analyze it, and ultimately that data, whether it is taken, whether this data is taken to at one point, and that one reality is the objective reality, which we use normally in our quantitative research. So what normally we do, we collect data, we analyze it, and ultimately find out what is the finding of this data. We collected data from 500 people, and what this data is suggesting, this is the objective reality. This is the finding. While qualitative research is rooted in constructivist paradigm. So the social constructionism paradigm that basically started, which was a sort of move mainly in last century, and the examples, few examples. Someone has texted that there is some problem in audio. Can you clearly hear me? If someone, just one person can chat me, okay. Okay. Constructionism or social constructionism is something when people said that you cannot find out reality just by using external data. And especially the main emphasis of these constructivist paradigm is that reality is socially constructed. So that is the same thing which we saw in beginning in, I think, the second or third slide. People carry implicit theories in their minds concerning almost all aspects of their reality, and their behavior is based on these theories or understanding about how things are related to each other, how the world works, why they behave so, and so on. So basically this is social constructionism, that whatsoever is happening around us, the implicit theory, whatever is developed in our mind, is because of context. So every person will have his own or her reality, and it also embraces interpretivism that seeks to understand the experience through the eyes of person experiencing it. So every person, what is the experience of that person about any phenomena? So in qualitative research, we don't have one reality. So that is something which is irritating for the positivist or modernist as well. They say that if reality is not objective, or if reality is not, one reality is not there, then we cannot say it is a reality. But the social constructionists, what they say that we have to see it with the perspective of every person and how that person experienced it. So the data collection, that requires a lot of detail. It won't be that much simple that you simply ask a question, are you satisfied with job? That person is saying, yes, I am satisfied. And you are concluding that everybody in this organization is satisfied. What this satisfaction actually means. So Glasser and Strauss wrote in one of the most famous papers on quality. This paper is, I think, a must study for everyone. I'll share different papers with the participants. I hope most of the participants are on WhatsApp group. But if you are not there, I'll share the link. After this meeting, I share the audio of the meeting on WhatsApp group, and also all the related articles as well. So Glasser and Strauss wrote in one of the most famous qualitative methods, each form of data is useful for both verification and generation of theory. So although this book paper is on qualitative methods, but he suggested that both are important for verification and generation of theory. So I will again say, when we say that qualitative method is important and we have to use the qualitative method and its importance, we are not nullifying the importance of quantitative. Like Glasser and Strauss said, that both are important for generation of theory. But the problem with positivism or positivist or modernist is that they focus generally on one thing. They are not willing to accept this thing that there can be multiple realities. So that's why whatsoever data or information is generated using qualitative research, most of the people who are using, because it's a complete school of thought. So when people who follow the positivism or modernism, they don't accept this perspective, the qualitative research and data collected after qualitative research, as something scientific. So that is the main problem, because of which many people, they are sort of demotivated and they don't use this method. And definitely when you see the leading journals in different domains, I think 90% are using quantitative methods. So the situation, environment, and everything supports quantitative method. That's why the qualitative method is ignored. But still, you will see studies from names like Edwin Locke, a renowned philosopher, or by many, even there was a special edition in Academy of Management journal that was on qualitative research in Academy of Management. They also highlighted the importance of qualitative research, and they wanted that people, they should go for qualitative research. So this method, the main difference between these two techniques or research methods is there is a complete, I skipped a lot of philosophy behind positivism, constructionism, that requires a lot of debate or discussion. I'm simply moving ahead. So both have got a different philosophical background. It's not just difference of method. It's not just difference of a questionnaire and interview. There's a complete philosophy. So around 400 years philosophy behind quantitative method, and at least 100 plus years philosophy between quantitative research. And now the stage where we are conducting research, there is so much rich literature or philosophy or material available in this domain that you have to discuss, especially people who want to use this method for research, for their PhD studies. I don't think unless you don't study this philosophy. That's why studying philosophy of research is important. So unless you are not clear about philosophy, the roots from where these, the difference it started. So initially when this quantitative method was introduced after I think Francis Bacon wrote a book titled The New Method, I guess in 1610. And when this book was published, he basically introduced the new method, which today we use for scientific investigation, or hypothetical deductive method. So at that time, he said that if you want to find out reality, you have to break different idols of mind. So he introduced 4 types of idols of mind: idol of cave, idol of marketplace, and there were 2 other. So at that time, this was something new, because people, they were following the philosophies of Greeks, and these philosophies were very popular. And when they suggested to have a different type of methodology, and if you want to find out objective reality, you have to collect data. Even Galileo was imprisoned for claiming that Earth revolves around the sun. So because he objectively collected data and analyzed it. So from that, this movement started, the positivism, and still it is there. It is there in every field, in every science. But from where the difference started? Early 1900, Thomas and Thomas is one example. Then after 1950s or 60s, this whole movement started, social constructionism. And people, they focused on the context and importance of context, and why context should be related with outcomes. And there was a lot of research on the context and on culture. Even in management, the role of culture, the work of Gert Hofstede and all these people who highlighted the role of culture, context. Hofstede's article titled "Management Scientists Are Human." If you read that article, he has basically challenged that all the theories of management, the people who have developed those theories, these were developed by the psychologists, especially, or the management experts who are living in one context. So how can Maslow assess the need hierarchy of all human beings? Because it can vary with context. How can a person who has developed a theory, spending whole life in USA or in UK or in any other country, how that person can assess or can even think about the reality of a person living in an underdeveloped country? So Hofstede basically suggested that these theories we normally apply blindly on other contexts. So if someone developed this theory in that context, we use that theory without testing it. So that is a principal mistake which normally we commit, and we are, even to our students, we are teaching those theories and concepts that this is the ERG theory, this is the equity theory. Yes, it is applicable here, but how it is applicable here? What even when we say in last workshop we were discussing about the social exchange theory, what is the meaning of social exchange in different contexts? What is the meaning of social exchange in Pakistan? What is the meaning of social exchange in maybe some Arab country? What is the meaning of social exchange in America, in Japan? Everywhere social exchange means a different thing. Then how we can have one theory for all these social exchanges? What is the reciprocity? What are the norms of reciprocity? So these constructivist or social constructionism domain, they basically challenge this thing that objective reality you cannot find out unless you don't have the context there. And that basically promoted the qualitative research. And if we have to find out the reality, and we can have multiple realities as well. Another thing which will differentiate between quantitative and qualitative research, normally in quantitative research, we are concerned about the relationship, the influence, how X is influencing Y. So that's why we collect data about both variables. While in qualitative research, we focus on a central phenomenon and we go for it. We collect every type of detail about that thing and then we explain it. So here, if Y is your dependent variable, you're not concerned about X, you're concerned about Y. What is Y? So in coming slides, I'll also explain what is meant by the central phenomena and how to focus on central phenomena. I think I should be moving a bit fast. Now this is a slide which I was talking about, normally which is taught in universities when we say, okay, what's the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. So this is a relevant slide, but it should be taught after explaining the philosophy, and I am not completed the philosophy yet. There are a number of slides remaining about the philosophy and concept, but technically, when you're conducting a research, what's the difference between quantitative approach and qualitative approach? So in quantitative, normally the design is experimental or survey, and qualitative non-experimental setting is laboratory. In qualitative, it's field. Instruments, we use different devices or questionnaires. In sciences, and different scientific instruments are used. While in qualitative research, narratives are collected using diaries or interviews. We collect numerical data in quantitative research, while in qualitative research, we collect descriptive data. Analysis is descriptive, analytic statistics or analysis is aimed at revealing meanings. What people said, let's say if you conducted an interview, what they said, what are the themes, and ultimately how can we relate it. So this is a generic slide. I think people who are doing research in qualitative and quantitative, they must be knowing these things, just to refresh your maybe. Okay, now the background of these two approaches, although I have discussed about positivism briefly, I'll try to explain it again to link it further with the philosophy. So positivists try to discover the machinery that makes our world work. Their tools of trade are experiments, and their goal is objectivity. Strictly speaking, the ability to see essence of things they are studying. Studies are conducted under rigorous controlled conditions, and hundreds, sometimes thousands of individual observations are made to verify that what is being seen is not the result of researchers' bias or an artifact of testing. So the main focus of positivist is that whatever you find is unbiased. What Francis Bacon, way back in 1600, said that there should be no idol of mind. And what is that idol of mind? No cognitive bias. So in your research, it should be free of cognitive biases. So in positivist philosophy, our main concern is that we collect objective data, and researcher has nothing to do with that data, no biases of researcher. Even these sampling techniques which we use, you must have read about the probability sampling and all these techniques. Objective is that you collect data which is unbiased. While the belief in single objective reality has been the scientific way of thinking for more than 4 centuries. The belief that objects have their own essence regardless of what thought about them led scientists to want to find these essences, to locate the structural properties of matter, the physical forces that govern nature, the elemental properties of existence. The idea of a single objective reality is simply that the pen I am holding in my hand exists regardless of me, or you or anyone else for the matter. Likewise, we are facing the COVID, exists as a real physical entity regardless of our lived experience or social conventions. So this is entirely a different perspective, but it's not wrong. Again, I will say it's not wrong. It is a different way of looking or seeing at reality. If a disease exists, so what is our experience or social conventions? It is there, it will affect everyone. Similarly, the scientific phenomenon which exist, the laws of nature which are there, they are operational, functional, they work, and they exist in form of single reality. So the positivists or the modernists, they've got a very strong case, and still even today. That's why it is valued more. But where comes the difference? So these researchers argued that experimental quantitative research is ill-suited to complex and dynamic social world in which we exist. That's a different opinion now. With its many forms, sites, and variations, especially considering the subtle social differences produced by gender, race, ethnicity, linguistic status, or class. multiple kinds of knowledge produced by multiple epistemologies and methodologies are not only worth having, but also demanded if policy, legislation, and practices are to be sensitive to social needs. Now we have got an equally good argument for the support of qualitative research. While we said that quantitative is important, but there is a whole world, maybe we can say that on pure scientific phenomenon, we are more concerned about these things, but there is a social life, a world exists also, the differences between people, the gender, race, ethnicity, linguistic, class, social class, so many things are there. So in this diverse scenario, in this diversity, can we find out a single reality? Or will what that single reality will mean? So although we should not say that quantitative research is something which should be abandoned, or we should use it, we should do research on that, but we should see a different perspective as well. That is the main objective of this workshop. I'm just trying to maybe trying to make you realize or feel this thing, that there is something else as well. There is a sound argument, or a more than 100 years literature or philosophy or theories there, which suggests that there is something missing. There is something which we should be using to find out reality. And if we ignore reality, if we ignore this perspective, maybe we can, or we might be finding out reality in many things, but there are hundreds or thousands of areas or problems in which this method is ill-suited. It cannot give you the relevant or right results. So going back, why we have to conduct qualitative research? When you're clear that in this situation, the quantitative method is not giving the desired results. It's not just a choice, okay, if I'm not using quantitative, I should be using qualitative. No, that's not the situation. Unless you don't have a strong background or sound argument or strong logic behind this thing, that why I should be using qualitative research, it should never be used. In that situation, if you're not clear, simply keep on using questionnaires and collecting data and doing analysis. It's not just a change of method. It's a change of thinking. It's a change of philosophy. It's a new way of thinking. So moving ahead, even if one accepts that positivists believe that objects around us are made up of real physical properties that would exist regardless of our ability to perceive them, there are clearly still some things that need to be explained with the other ways of thinking. Yes, if a matter is there, it exists with its properties. If a disease is there, it exists regardless of my perception or my context. So maybe majority of things can be explained, but there are certain things. There are certain, you can say, exceptions, which cannot be explained using the quantitative method. So what should we do for that? Depression. Maybe, well, we have a chemical basis to it. Yes, now we have got a chemical basis and scientific reason. But what are the causes of depression? Can we have one reality, objective reality, that this will cause depression? It varies person to person, context to context, social class, a number of factors. Similarly, alcoholism, stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, autism, and number of other things. People would doubt the reality of their physical existence. What is the stress? What is the physical reality of stress? If someone is alcoholic or maybe addicted to any drug, why? There is the reality, physical reality. Yes, if you're using some drug, that will be effect of that drug on your psychological mechanism or your health, but why that person is using this drug? What were the reasons? So here the positivism, it fails. You cannot use that method to explain these complex realities. So for that purpose, the more valuable or more relevant methodology is the qualitative research method. Okay, moving on with the philosophy. So qualitative approach involves a view that I'll be moving towards the qualitative research and different important components, because whenever we're conducting research, 2 or 3 things must be clear. At least 2 things I think must be clear. That is ontology and epistemology. So ontology is a branch of philosophy which deals with reality. So what is reality? This whole discipline is concerned with explaining that what is the reality. So every type of method which we use research, it has got a different type of ontology. So what is the ontology of qualitative research? Number 1, each person actively constructs an individual reality out of his or her own particular experience. The most important thing of this ontology. That basically is the key difference between the other approaches, especially the modernism and social constructionism. Each person constructs an individual reality. So everybody has got his or her own reality based on experiences. This reality differs from person to person. So these are the basic ontological assumptions of qualitative research. You cannot use qualitative research unless you are not clear about these assumptions. Third, it is shaped by interaction with other people. Reality is socially constructed. This means that people are not subjects who passively receive whatever an objective external reality offers them, but they are actors who construct the world they live in. I think these 3 points are the most important concepts to understand qualitative research. And the third one, I'll again read it. Number 1, reality is socially constructed. Each person has got his own reality based on experience. So this part is linking the reality with psychology, maybe person's personality, maybe person's aptitude, attitude, a number of things. There's a lot of research on this area, that why we perceive things differently. It is linked with brain structure as well. It is linked with different components of our brain which are more active. That's why it differs from person to person. So apart from this thing that we discuss it on theoretically, we have got a strong evidence that it is based on some biological reasons as well. And then we socially constructed. Every person, every individual has got a social context. And whatsoever reality that person creates, it is basically, it comes out as an interaction of individual's own perception, personal feelings, thinking, or personality, and then its interaction with that environment. So we discussed a very important theory in last workshop, that was the trait activation theory, that when traits are activated in a different context, different traits are activated. So this means, the last lines, that people are not subjects who passively receive whatever an objective external reality offers them. People are not like matter. People are not like any disease. But they are actors who construct the world they live in. So if something is coming towards you, some information, there is a social constructed phenomenon around you, you just don't observe and wait. And every person will be having a different type of reaction to that external factor based on personal perception. So while we say that this COVID disease, there is a objective reality of this disease, but there is another thing which is subjective element. Every person has got his or her own perception about this disease that is linked with the way people they think about it, how they perceive this phenomenon. So the reaction of people to this disease, that is different. Why people they are behaving differently? Some people, when they go out, they take all the precautionary measures. They wear the mask. I think it has nothing to do with education or awareness. I've seen people, quite learned people, they are not using any type of protective things or anything like that. And some people who are not maybe well educated. So it is linked how you have perceived this reality, and everybody is reacting differently to this disease, which will ultimately affect the spread of disease. So in any area, COVID-19 exists as a reality, as a scientific reality, but its spread is not linked with that type of scientific reality. It is linked with our social behaviors, how people they react to this reality, what image they have developed. Most of people they say nothing happens, इससे तो कुछ भी नहीं होता, क्या होगा इससे? So if this is your perception about this reality, then what will be the outcome? So every actor reacts differently to this social reality, and based on this perception, every person responds differently. Okay, now I'm receiving test. It's namaz maghrib break time here in Islamabad. I think in other cities or even other countries the time will be different, but majority of students they are participating from Islamabad, and it's a tradition in these workshops that we take a small short break for namaz. So there will be 10 minutes break for namaz now, maghrib prayer. So it's around 7:25, I guess, 20 here in Islamabad. So we'll be coming back after 10 minutes. We'll come back after 10 minutes. So there's a 10 minutes break for namaz. And then I'll take some questions as well. Different people, they're asking different questions. So I'll take some questions, and then inshallah we'll be moving ahead. So there's a break for 10 minutes now. Okay, now I'll be taking a few questions about the discussion. So far, we have discussed about few things, basic philosophy of qualitative research, why it should be used. Let me unmute the participants. So now you can unmute your mics, and anyone having a question, you can ask the question. Can you unmute the mic?
Yes.
Okay, any question? Muhammad Akmal, you have raised the hand. So question from your side. So I think one by one you can ask questions.
मंजिला सुबह थल मंजिल थी इतनी होनी ना
Can you unmute your mics, please? I'm trying from here to unmute your mics. There's some again problem, I guess.
Hi, this is Kiran from.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so will you be discussing what is the best? I recognize the philosophy and the ontology behind qualitative research, but still there must be some measures or some means that we can take to reduce researcher bias, mitigate researcher bias, I want to say, not reduce. Would you be discussing that today or tomorrow?
Yes, definitely. We'll be discussing these points that specifically because the main objection on qualitative research or the people in the modernist, basically the question when the researcher is part of this research process, so the findings are biased. So I'll be discussing those points. The presentation is quite long. There are different points, and I hope if I find time, I have got the discussion that how to reduce these biases and ultimately when you're reporting these results, how can you try? Maybe you cannot say that this type of research is totally bias free, but how you can reduce these biases, that I'll be discussing.
Or mitigate them.
Or mitigate. Definitely, I'll be discussing.
Awesome. How much longer is it going to be today, Dr. Bashir?
Normally we go up for 3 hours. So if it started at 6 p.m. here, so at least I'll try to, I think we have got around 1 more hour.
All right. And the same thing tomorrow?
Yes, same thing tomorrow. Tomorrow our main focus will be on en vivo.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Any other question?
Hello, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sir. First of all, thank you so much for your presentation. As always, sir, I have a very simple question. Like, is it necessary to understand the real philosophy of the research, like the ontology, epistemology, and these sort of things? Because I've seen so many friends, I've seen so many colleagues. They still complete their PhD. They have done everything. They have do a very good quantitative research, but they don't know the ABC of these. If you ask them what is epistemology or ontology, they say, "What is this? I haven't heard these words." So, to what extent do you think every researcher must have to study the philosophy or these terminologies first?
I think that's your personal choice. How do you want to work? So I think there is a difference between researcher and a scholar. So you can do research, I think, even by not understanding these philosophies and just by understanding the basic methodologies of doing research and how to collect data and how to analyze it and how to report results. Number one, this type of strategy, it may work or it can take you up to a certain level. Maybe you can publish in some journals. What is the quality of that journal? Or I don't think you can publish in top journals without understanding these philosophies. That is my perception again. That is important thing. So this publication, again, the word publication is also quite subjective, where they are published, which type of study that is, and once that study is published, how much that study is cited, how much that study is valued, or how much people they consider it important as well. So for a researcher, all these things matter. So if someone has started research just with the objective to complete a master's level or PhD degree and then to publish few papers after that research, many people are doing this thing without understanding the philosophy or anything like that. So it may work up till that level. So it can take you to a certain level, but you cannot maybe excel in research, or maybe you cannot be termed or called as a scholar, or your write-up, even your write-up, or even your discussion, that may not reflect that what actually you know and how you present it. So my methodology, normally teaching at any level, especially at PhD level, the focus is more on developing a scholarly orientation in students, because if once that thing is developed, publication is nothing. Then if this thing is clear, then you can easily go for anything. So that should be actually the approach of teaching at PhD level. But normally, unfortunately, in most of the universities, this method is not being followed. That's why students, they only focus on these things, that how to publish and what are the techniques and what are the shortcuts and how to do PhD. Yes, you can do PhD, you can publish in good journals without understanding maybe philosophy in detail, but that is not something which is desirable. Throughout the world, you can see this thing, what type of people exist. My sort of philosophy or my methodology is a bit different.
Okay,
sir,
thank
can
you.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sir, will you be focusing on some specific qualitative method like content analysis, or you will be covering the methods which can be analyzed through en vivo only?
The main focus of current workshop, since it is for en vivo, so mainly the main, although I'll be discussing the theory of the other methods as well, but for this workshop, the main focus is on analysis using en vivo. So the instruments or methods which can be analyzed using en vivo will be focusing more. I'll be discussing theory, but number one, the time constraint is there. It's just a 2 days workshop, so it can have a limited focus. Maybe in future, when we use any other software for qualitative analysis, maybe then we can discuss other methods in detail as well.
Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Hifza. I had a question that was more specific regarding the example you gave when you were explaining different realities. You gave the example of COVID-19 these days, and how you said that education has nothing to do with the perception of this disease.
Yes, please.
Yes, but don't you think that education does affect perception and ultimately social behavior?
Definitely. I was just giving you some examples or exceptions that maybe for some people it don't works. Otherwise, awareness, it matters, and it changes your perception or maybe your reality of things as well. What basically education do? What is the function of, what's the difference between education and, or if we say ignorance? So I think Aristotle said that uh, education or learning is basically awareness about your ignorance. You know how ignorant you were before learning something. So it changes your perception, but definitely there are two forces operative. And even education, you are getting something externally from environment, from your school, college, or universities. And on the other part, there is your personality. If your personality characteristics are more strong, if the type of personality you're having or a brain structure you're having is like that, that you don't accept things quickly, or that don't affect that internal components of your psychological mechanism. So you must have seen many people having who have got a lot of education or degrees, still they behave even worse than uneducated people. So I was discussing that example. Otherwise, definitely education, it changes your perception of reality. Even by attending even the people who are attending today's lecture, if you have not discussed about or heard about qualitative research, it will change your perception of reality about qualitative research. So awareness, it changes perception, but in some cases there can be exceptions where people, they don't change, and we have many examples in our surroundings where we see that people, they have got degrees from maybe the best universities of the world. Still, we see them behaving like an illiterate person.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
I have a question.
Gigi, please.
What is the justification that we should go for a qualitative research or a quantitative research?
Justification, yes.
Yes. Okay, continue.
Okay, justification, it is linked with your research problem. Which type of problem, or what is your research question? What basically you're trying to find out? So if the problem, the nature of problem.
If I am trying to find out a concept about something and about any construct, so how can we decide that we should go for a qualitative or a quantitative? Most of the time our supervisors guided us that it should be go with quantitative or qualitative. So I don't know what is the justification.
Justification for a specific construct, it will depend, or a variable, it will depend at how much information is available. And for example, if it is not properly operationalized as yet, and for that particular construct or variable, you don't have got much literature or information on it. So the type of investigation, because it is linked with your research problem and even research design as well. So now you'll be requiring some sort of exploratory research. And when not much is known about something, then normally we go for qualitative research. And if the information is available and it is properly described, and when you feel that now people, they know about this phenomenon and they can easily give me information, normally we go for. That's why for most of the cases we go for quantitative analysis. But in exploratory research, if you're clear about the concept of exploratory research, when not much is known, so in that situation, normally we start with qualitative research.
Is there any contributing factor of sample, means sample having any contribution factor, either go for a qualitative research or a quantitative research?
I don't think so, because both methods have got different type of sampling requirement. So while for a quantitative study, when we collect data from 300 people, sometime it is said that this is insufficient sample, while in qualitative research, if you collect data from 10 people, that can be considered a sufficient sample. So I don't think there is anything common about sampling in these two methods. Both have got a different type of sampling philosophy and methodology, and numbers wise, it's an entirely different thing. Yes, please. Any
Hello,
question?
sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, it's me, Saad, sir. So first of all, thank you very much for such an in-depth session. My question is regarding the third paradigm, which is a pragmatism, and especially the mixed method researchers, which I am also as well. We use this as a third pragmatic approach. But when you have to present your findings in the end, how you combine your both qualitative and quantitative phases, and how you present at that stage. That's my question regarding towards the end.
Okay, I think firstly, let me complete this presentation. In the end, there is a discussion on the mixed methodology as well, because that is something which most of the researchers, they recommend that we should go for it, because again, it's not a debate qualitative versus quantitative. It's a debate that which is the most suitable method. That's why in most of the cases, the best technique is to go for both methods. It should not be either qualitative or quantitative. So when we go for both methods, you have got two different types of data. You have got one stream of data which is collected using any type of survey instrument or experiment, which is quantitative in nature, and the other one is in qualitative in nature. And then when you are at the discussion, that is again a very interesting and complicated part as well, that how to merge both findings and then try to reach at one conclusion that what actually you found. So I hope when we'll be discussing about these two methods, then I'll try to link it with if again the time is there, that how to relate it with results as well, or even after the en vivo maybe workshop, once people they are clear that which type of because most of the participants, I think more than 50% today were attending, who I personally know, they have got almost no idea about qualitative research or en vivo, because at master's level, mostly students, they go for quantitative, even they do thesis on quantitative analysis. So many are attending something on qualitative research. Maybe they have heard about it for the first time. So firstly, when they are clear about what is qualitative research, how we use en vivo, how we develop themes, and ultimately how we reach at some conclusion, then I hope we'll be discussing this thing as well.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks a lot.
I think now I should be moving ahead, because we have the time constraint, although I think two people, they have raised hand. If there is some question, I can take just one final question, please. Okay, I think I should be moving ahead now. So after that basic discussion on the methods, qualitative method, and the difference between qualitative and quantitative method. Now, this was a slide which we were discussing before break. I hope you can see this slide now. So I think someone should confirm in chat. So, okay. So after ontology, we are concerned about the epistemology of qualitative approach as well. So this was the philosophical background of qualitative research. Now in epistemology, I hope most of the people must be clear, but again, that is my perception. Epistemology is also a branch of philosophy in which we are concerned, this is concerned or linked with how knowledge is generated. So whenever we are using any method, we must know. Again, must word seems a bit harsh in a way that people they don't look go for ontology of any method, or just some participant also asked this question, that people they do their PhD or publish papers without these understandings. So that is something which exists, and maybe you can do research. But my suggestion or recommendation is that people who opt for a field of or a career or profession which is linked with scholarly contribution, so they should try to do or complete it in the best possible manner. So shortcuts are there in any field, in any area. So you can use shortcuts, or maybe you can be successful. But I don't think that even personally imagine a situation that I don't know how these people, if they're teaching, how they stand in class and teach in the classes, that if I'm standing in a class after doing PhD and after publishing so many papers, and somebody asks that what is the ontology of quantitative method, and I am unable to answer that question, personally, I will maybe will never go to class after that day, because that is something, if there is some question for which I'm not aware about that thing, and I can find out its answer, maybe I can take some time. But the thing which is the mandatory to call me a PhD or a doctor of philosophy, PhD or a master's in philosophy, and I'm unable to tell the basics of that field. I know there are teachers who are in the classes who are teaching without knowing anything about this thing, but my suggestion to all the participants and my students, maybe in thousands now, either at master's level, and I just discussed that 17 they have completed PhD with me. My suggestion to all of them is that either we should not be in this field of research, we should not be doing research. There are hundreds of other fields where we can go. But if we are in this field, then we should complete all the things which makes us scholar, not maybe simply a publisher, not simply a PhD. So epistemology, again, is important to understand that how knowledge is generated. So epistemology of quantitative method is different and qualitative method is different. So what is the epistemology of qualitative procedure? It emphasizes on how do people make sense of the external world. This is external world. How people, they make sense of their external world. Number two, so that will basically, that gives them information. And based on this thing, the knowledge is generated. How do they understand how they themselves and others fit into this world? And third thing, how do they decide how to act in terms of their own reality? How do they communicate their understanding to other people? That is a very important thing, that how they understand something, number one. And after understanding something, how they communicate to others. So in a qualitative research, or research, even research in research philosophy, there's a lot of debate on this language and linguistics part as well, or communication part as well, because if you look at the research process, even if we go for the positivist approach, where you are totally concerned with external reality, and the researcher is totally unbiased, and you're simply collecting data from someone, from some individual, using a survey, a questionnaire. So this communication, number one, how they understood it, that is a very important thing. So normally, in the effort to remain unbiased, we normally ignore all the basic requirements of research. So just by distributing a survey or a questionnaire, we feel that our responsibility is over. So whatsoever we have written in the questionnaire, our assumption is that the respondents, they can understand it, they will read it in detail, they will logically answer, and that will give me some important information. Now, all the people who are doing research, they very well know this phenomenon or issue, that how much seriously people, number one, for me, the main issue is at the part of researchers, that the information you are communicating without understanding or realizing that for whom this information is meant, why this type of questions were developed, and from whom I'm asking these questions, and what is the response. So the whole communication process is involved in data collection. This is very important thing. So in communication, there is a sender then there is a medium, sender, the message is coded, then there is a medium, then receiver, and the message is decoded. So if you simply relate your any activity in which you are trying to collect data using any method, how much this communication process was completed, then the receiver gives the feedback. So whether the data was correctly coded, whether the medium which you have used was correct, whether it was correctly decoded, and then you collected the information. And especially in organizational behavior and psychology, even in consumer behavior, I'm concerned about certain questionnaires in which the nature of question is such that you're trying to judge or you're trying to measure something which is related with the affective component or with the emotions. And you simply think that the person will read the question and without feeling about that question anything, he will answer it. So when we look at the brain structure, that again, it is a lengthy debate, but still it's very important that how you are communicating that information, how you are giving that information to others, and how they are receiving it. So what is the process through which they are receiving this information and how they are communicating? So normally the information or the language part, when we give information to others, that is linked with the external component. If I'm not wrong, that is the cortex of the brain. And then there is an internal component which is more linked or concerned with the emotions part. So if there is some issue or problem, the information is not reaching that person. So what that person will do, simply take the any choice from strongly disagree to agree, and it collect data, and you will say, this is the reality. This is the one reality which we found, and that is my result. So this problem is resolved to a large extent in qualitative research. So we are concerned about this thing in epistemology. In epistemology of quantitative research, how the person, they act in a certain reality and how they communicate this to other people, how this information is reaching to any other person or a researcher. We are concerned about this thing. So you'll ensure any method of data collection in qualitative research in which you can collect the relevant or right information, the person is responding after understanding what the issue is, the communication process is complete, and then you're getting the information. I'm not saying it will be 100% perfect, but this gives the edge to qualitative method on quantitative method. That is the main strength of qualitative method, that in this inquiry, in this epistemology, when we are generating knowledge, we're not relying on some data, because the main thing, if you see the literature of qualitative research, which qualitative researchers they discuss, is that this is more reliable and valid. And if the data which you have collected, there are issues of reliability and validity, all the exercise, I think there is no utility of this method. So in epistemology of qualitative research, we are concerned about these issues. The third part of qualitative research, so three things normally, I think for the information of people who are new to research, whenever we are doing research, you should try to understand firstly three things. What is the ontology of this method, what I'm using? Normally people don't go for it. What is the epistemology of this method, how knowledge is generated in this method? Many people, I think even people who are listening, they must have published a number of papers without ever understanding the meaning of ontology and epistemology. So that is something, it can be called a miracle, but still, the new researchers, especially there is a big number of participants from master's level who are have started their masters or doing currently doing masters, and then they'll be doing PhD. So at least at PhD level, you should try to explore these things. These are very interesting things, and once you read these things, I hope the method which I have adopted for this workshop, the objective, one of the objective was to see things differently. And if you understand things using this method, in my opinion, that again is my objective reality. In my opinion, that is much more interesting, and you can develop more interest in research if you use this method. That is my perception. You can agree or disagree with me. So after epistemology, the next thing comes methodology. This is something which we know, for which we read chapters in books, and teachers tell us in detail that what is the research methodology. So what is the sample? So we read about the sampling techniques, and every student, even in the thesis, explains about the technique that explain the techniques that why I've used this technique and what are the reasons for using this technique, and this was my sample size, and this was the instrument which I use, and it was developed or it was adopted from this researcher, and so on. So in qualitative research methodology, we are concerned about different things like observing. When we are using observation method, we observe others, and then we report the things normally which we call the narratives. The narratives are the result of observation. We record things, what people say or write, and then we use that for analysis purposes. Then there is another methodology, interpreting what the people said from the point of view of since these slides are taken from a book, so they suggest that in this particular book they have also given the details that which type of interpretation is given for this in sociology, psychology, or any other discipline, how this information should be interpreted, and how to finally generalize it, that how the findings which you have what you found from using any method, how to generalize it. So there was just a question about this issue that finally when we are concluding how to generalize results, and ultimately when you have got information from different sources, how ultimately we can generalize the result even if, when we are using a mixed method. Then there are certain attributes of qualitative research. Now gradually I'll try to come out of philosophy, and for next 30-40 minutes, I'll discuss some things which generally are linked with qualitative research, practically how to go for it. So it normally starts, since it is a sort of exploratory research, generally we start with how and what you're trying to discover, generate, explore, identify, or describe. These are the common words in qualitative research. Very common is to discover or identify or explore. So you need some in-depth analysis. So that's why you're going for qualitative research. Ask what happened to describe, ask what was the meaning of people, of what happened to understand, ask what happened over time to explore a process. So it can be any issue in the organization, or it can be something in some market, or maybe some psychological mechanism or anything like that. So you have to explore that process. And basically the qualitative research goes into detail that how to explore this process, and how to ask the questions. Even asking the question, there's a complete book, if you search it on Google, its title is Asking the Questions. How to ask a question. There's a complete process or scientific way of asking the question, which type of question should be asked, who the audience is, how and when the question should be asked, and what to expect from the respondents, what they will respond. So we, in qualitative research, we're concerned about these things. Maybe in quantitative, we're concerned about the structure of a questionnaire and wording of the questionnaire and different issues. But in qualitative research, every question which you are asking, firstly you have to do an in-depth analysis that what I'm asking, from whom I'm asking, and when I'm asking. All these things I think are related, and then maybe we can ask that question. Traditions commonly, this again is a complete debate of maybe 2 or 3 days, that what are the traditions commonly which we use. I'll briefly discuss it. I've a slide for it in which I'll describe the differences. But maybe if we offer a complete workshop of 1 week or 3 or 4 days, maybe we can discuss all these components in detail. But normally it is a narrative research. We just discussed about narratives when we're using observation method, or phenomenology, or ethnography, or grounded theory, or case study. These are the common traditions which are there. So in qualitative research, and if you're conducting a research, if you're conducting a qualitative research, then you might be using one of them. So broadly, what are the differences between these 5 different important dimensions? So if you can see this slide, I'll just read these points briefly, and maybe we can discuss these in detail in some other workshop, or maybe I can upload some video on it. This is very important part, but the issue is that we cannot discuss all these things in detail, because already we have taken around 2 hours. So just to give you an idea that what is the difference between these methods, but each method is a complete discipline, you can say. If you are using narrative or phenomenology or grounded theory, you have to understand the complete concept and then you can use it. Brief differences. The focus of narrative is that in narrative, exploring the life of an individual, you have to go into detail. So studies in different fields, like in anthropology, studies when people they try to understand a culture and what is the culture of some area, then normally we go for narratives. We want to explore the life of an individual. What are the traditions here? What are the customs, norms, and belief system, and all these details. So normally in this type of research, when we're collecting data, we use observation method, and specifically the method is participant observation method. And what is participant observation method? The person who is collecting data, that person becomes part of life of that individual. So for a certain time period, especially in anthropology, in research related studies, people, they live in a certain area. Maybe they live with some family, or there is some sort of understanding between the people of that area, that this person will be living here for next 6 months or 1 year and observing all these things, and will be having narratives for this thing. This is narrative. Now in the focus in phenomenology is that understanding the essence of experiences about a phenomenon. Narrative is generally for a detailed analysis, maybe of a culture or anything like that. But when we go for phenomenology, in that particular case, our main focus is understanding there is some phenomenon, some problem, or some issue, and for that we're concerned, and we want to understand that what people they think or feel about this phenomenon. We just discussed the example of this disease. So what are the reaction, social reaction? We just submitted a research paper in a journal, which is under review now. That was on COVID-19, and we conducted a qualitative study, qualitative research, and that was basically on the stigma being experienced by medical professionals who have got this COVID disease. So currently you can see that there are hundreds of doctors even in Pakistan, and I think more than 100,000 maybe throughout the world. The medical professionals, they are affected by this disease, and how they are being stigmatized. And the basic motivation for this research started from early deaths in Pakistan of some healthcare professionals. And in one case in media, after the death of that medical professional, and they basically there was a telephone call between that doctor and his relative, and that telephone call indicated that that relative was asking the doctor to go to hospital and go for the checkup, and you should not stay at home. And he was saying that no, I cannot go because if the people in my area, they know this thing that I have got this disease, there will be problem for my whole family, and in hospital if I tell, that will be issue and problem, so I'll keep it secret. And that person, that medical doctor, died at home. He was a medical doctor, but he did not go to hospital even for treatment. So that is the stigma. Stigma or related disease-related stigma, you will find a lot of research in this area. I published 2 or 3 papers in this domain as well. But this is a unique phenomenon when the doctors, they are facing this stigma. So we basically conducted interview in that research of 12 medical doctors who were COVID-19 positive, and they are currently quarantined at that time. I think 1.5 months ago, around 1 month ago, they were quarantined in their homes or any other place. So we contacted them through different sources, basically sources, some medical doctors, some friends, they helped us in getting them connected, and we collected data. We interviewed them, myself and my colleague, Dr. Basharat. We collected the data, we interviewed them, asked different questions on telephone and even online. They were willing to give the information, and based on the information collected, what is the nature of this phenomenon, stigma, social stigma, or the stigma faced by medical professionals, how they are passing through this phase, and what are the consequences of this thing. So that paper is under review in Qualitative Health Research. It's I think a top tier journal in qualitative domain of health, having impact factor of around 4. This is sort of the situation in which that's why it is derived from this word phenomena. Then another very important, interesting and unique tradition is grounded theory. Grounded theory approach, developing a theory grounded from data in the field. So that is altogether a different type of methodology of research and different from quantitative. Quantitative, we move from theory to data. This is the theory, this is the literature, this is the hypothesis. Now we'll be collecting data, and these are the results. In grounded theory, we go for data first in the field, and based on that data, we develop the theory. Very important and very interesting method. If you use this method, you find out such things which you never imagined that this can be the situation. Because in 2 or 3 studies, we attempted this method. So because normally we have just discussed that our perception is limited by our ability to process information, what is called bounded rationality. We cannot process all information. So normally we keep on thinking about something that this is the reality, this is the situation. And I'm expert in this area. So that was not for publication purposes. In a university, we conducted this analysis, which was about some student-related issues or problems or different issues they are facing. So my or my colleagues' perception or their perception about these problems was a certain type of typical thinking. Okay, this is the problem students of maybe master's or PhD level are facing, and this is their solution. So once I attempted to analyze those problems using grounded theory approach, I thought rather than having a pre-theory or concept in my mind, we should try to collect data first and then try to give a theory, then try to give a shape to this problem, that what actually is happening there. And the interesting thing is that in the area in which I felt, or maybe my friends or colleagues felt that we are experts, we know everything about these areas, when the data were collected and then the theory was developed, I think our perception of reality, that was totally shattered. Maybe 70 to 80% things which we were thinking were not there. And the ground reality or problems which people were facing, that was entirely different. This is something which is required everywhere, especially in the context like Pakistan and maybe other underdeveloped countries. If you want to find out what actually problem or what problem people they are facing, you should start this method. What happens is that even our leaders, they go with preconceived notions. This is the problem, this is the situation, this is how I'm going to resolve it, without realizing or without getting any information from people who are experiencing that problem. Even in phenomenology, but in grounded theory, because here you can collect data from a bigger sample and then you can have some theory about it. So this is something I think I would recommend all the researchers to go read the grounded theory approach in detail, and you will find it very interesting. And if once you use this method, so all the people who are currently listening to me and they feel that they are experts of their field, whatsoever you are doing, you are a teacher, you are working in a bank, in a university, in any organization, and you feel that I am the best expert of this field. So note down your key competencies, that this is the information which I have got about this field, and because of this information or this perception, I am the best expert of this field. And then collect the data, without having any sort of bias from different people. I'll just give you how much people you should interview, 20 to 30 people, individuals. Just collect unbiased information about that problem or about that thing, their perspective. I might be wrong, that is my perception of reality. More than 50% things which you think are right, the people who are experiencing that problem, they'll say either that is not a problem for us, that is something irrelevant, and what they will tell you that you have never thought in your life that this can be something. After working 20, 30 years, 10 years in this area, I never thought that this can be there, this issue can be there. Just try it one time. It is a challenge from me, because this I have recommended to many people. Because I've worked in different projects of government as well, with different organizations, with different experts who were working in different areas where they were trying to resolve or having some sort of policy things, trying to develop some policy things for people. I just asked them, before developing this policy, just use grounded theory approach once as a trial. Don't go for your education. I have done PhD in development economics and I've got 10 years experience of working in World Bank, and I know so. No. For the time being, ignore that you know anything about this phenomenon or problem. For the time being, assume that you're totally illiterate, you know nothing, and then ask some people about this problem, like poverty elevation or anything. what problems people they are facing. And I think 70 to 80% people, I think very high-fi economists, they also agreed after using this method that yes, you're right. This methodology gave us such insights which maybe in this whole career of PhD or studying or doing research, we never thought, because we never practically interacted with those people who are facing these problems. So I think I should move ahead, because I'm biased toward this method. I like this method. That's why I'm giving more details. Moving ahead, the next method, the tradition rather, it's not a method, it's a tradition. This is a tradition qualitative method which are being used. People say these are methods, these are traditions. Ethnography, this is again, I gave example in narration, but in ethnography, this is specifically for culture or some social group specific things which you want to understand about that social group or culture. Then it is ethnography. This also requires a detailed interaction with those people. Maybe you have to become part of them. And then you collect information. It can be you or by observing them, by asking questions from them, by having a sort of interview as well. So multiple methods can be used. I'll discuss the data collection method as well. Then a case study is in-depth analysis of a single case or a multiple case. Now you have to focus on just, normally case study is normally used for one case, any specific problem. So I was surprised that in top tier journals of medicine, Journal of American Medical Association and Lancet and Nature, there are studies recently on COVID-19 which are published on just one patient. The data is just from one patient, but that patient was unique. In the specific area, the first person who died because of COVID. That was a unique case. What were the characteristics, how he basically got this disease and what the issues and so on. And then the medical information as well. So if, in some cases you require that I think very important information for COVID-19 can be that who was the first person who got infected in this area, in this country. If you can collect the information about that person, how he captured or got this disease and how ultimately it spread. So that case study, maybe you collect data from 500 individuals. This one information about one person will be much more valuable than information of 500 people. So how we collect data in these methods after focus, in narrative, normally it is primary interviews and documents, and even we can have observation as well, but you can ask questions. Normally in narration, we go for observation as well. For phenomena, definitely we lead long interviews, up to 10 people. So even this slide is good because it also gives you the number, and this is not something which is written randomly. You can find support or evidence in literature about these numbers, that why I've written 10 or 20 or 30. In grounded theory, interviews with 20 to 30 individuals to saturate categories and detail a theory. Now, in this situation, 20 to 30, again, you will find different citations. The best method, whenever you're using any sample size in a study, is to give a very strong reference, a good citation, that how you assess this thing, that there should be 10 people, 20 or 30, you cite that XYZ or ABC in his or her study. They used so many sample size and they suggested that based on this thing, this sample is appropriate or adequate. In ethnography, observation method, definitely for studying culture, interviews can be conducted. In narratives and ethnography, the method is almost similar, but definitely in narrative we focus more on interviews, and in ethnography it is more focus on observation. In case study, we can have multiple information, documents and records, interviews, and multiple things. I discussed example of the patient of this disease. So we can use multiple methods. Then how data is analyzed? What is the method of data analysis in these traditions, in narratives, stories, and then historical content in when we are going for phenomenology, statements, meanings, themes, general description. In grounded theory, it's a different method, open coding, Excel coding, selective coding, and conditional matrix. This is a complete detail that what are these coding methods, and ultimately how using these coding we can have ultimately a theory out of this data. And in ethnography, we go for description, analysis, and interpretation. We describe the situation, analyze it, and again, in case study, we go for description, themes, and assertions. A narrative form, detailed picture of an individual's life. In phenomena, description of essence of the phenomena. In grounded theory, or what is the theory beyond that thing. An ethnography, description of cultural behavior, and case study, in-depth study. So this is the shortest possible explanation of these traditions. I can have I think months of discussion on each type. Every type is important. Every type has got its own detail, a sort of ontology, epistemology, data collection, methodologies, analysis techniques, results, and so on. So these traditions are basically 5 different domains of research in which some people they prefer or use one method, and they keep on working on that one method, and they go for it. So the main objective of discussing this slide was that you can have an idea about qualitative research, that if I'm going to conduct a qualitative research, which method, which tradition I should be following. So it is not your choice. It will depend. What I'm saying earlier as well, I was saying this thing that it is linked with your research problem, what your research question, what you are trying to explore. So if you are trying to explore the whole life of a person, and you say I'm using the phenomenology, then that is wrong. This I have seen in many cases, especially at student level, and even in some papers as well. If by chance some paper is submitted to some journal which is qualitative in nature, and if that comes to me as a reviewer of any journal, so I am sometimes surprised that people, they do or conduct research without understanding that which tradition I am following. So maybe tradition is ethnography, and the data collection method they have used for grounded theory. That's a difference, but ethnography in narrative form. So you must be clear once, number one, when you're doing a qualitative research, I think you must be clear why I'm using this method, what is the need for doing qualitative research, whether my research question, it can be answered using a qualitative research. And if I'm using a qualitative research, what is the nature of the problem which I'm trying to research, which I'm trying to resolve, and which type of appropriate tradition should be used. How I'm going to defend that the grounded theory was the best tradition in qualitative research which I have used. Why not case study? Why not any other thing? So you must have got a strong evidence or support, then you should use it. And once you used one tradition, then this one column is important. If the focus is clear, then data collection method which you are using, data analysis technique which you are using, and narrative form, they should go, they must be aligned. You should not jump from one box to another box. That focus is different, data collection method is different, and analysis technique you are using different. This is a complete one solution, one column. So you have to use it completely. So if you're using a qualitative research or using any tradition, in that situation, you're supposed to read about these traditions in detail, which normally students don't do. Again, I'll say that with qualitative research, people just think, okay, I have to collect data differently and I have to analyze differently. That's it. That is my qualitative research. This is my qualitative study. And that thing is generally accepted by, unfortunately, by most of the teachers as well. I've seen people who are teaching even research or qualitative research, and the way students they attempt the assignments or how they present their research papers, I'm surprised at what actually they have been studying during this whole semester about qualitative research. Interestingly, I'm in the selection board of different universities. I'm a member of different universities in their selection board, and when we conduct interviews for faculty hiring in different universities, so definitely when a person is coming with a PhD degree or maybe a master's level degree, and for me the most important question is that what was your area of research in thesis, which problem basically you addressed and how you addressed it. And very rare answer is that I used qualitative method. Maybe after 1,000 candidates, there is someone who say, sir, I have. Otherwise, there is a ready-made solution for every problem of the world. Every problem can be resolved using quantitative method. But even if that one candidate who has used qualitative method in PhD or master's level, when that person starts describing what he did in thesis, I'm confused that where is qualitative method in this whole process, except the data collection and using NVivo. NVivo is very popular commonly, especially in Pakistan. We use this software very common. So when I ask that how you use qualitative method, the answer is I use NVivo. Then my question is, NVivo is a software for analysis. What was the technique? What was the methodology? So the methodology was I collected data from 20 people. I conducted an interview. Why you conducted an interview? Because the problem which you identified, for that, the observation was the best technique. Why you didn't go for it? No, sir, that was easy. I collected. And so I don't think many people, they even know these terminologies. Even after doing research in qualitative domain, even after publishing paper or doing thesis, when you ask just this, slide is very important for understanding this whole process. When you ask simply the difference between narrative form and grounded theory or case study or phenomenology, they're not clear. They cannot tell the difference. And they did a complete thesis using. So again, I would refer to same question which a participant asked. Yes, you can publish, you can do research, you can do thesis, but what is the utility of such thesis when you're sitting in front of so the problem is that the researchers or scholars, they normally say, or even there are forums on Facebook I've seen, that government is reluctant to hire new PhDs, and new PhDs they don't get good opportunities for hiring, and universities are biased, and their system of hiring, there are so many flaws in that system, and there are biases and everything. Yes, systems are flawed, there is nepotism, everything is there. But at least in my experience, even in public sector university, if I conducted an interview and the student was able to defend his work, his research, and the basic concepts about that discipline in which he claims that he did PhD, I've never seen even in a single situation when that person was not selected. It cannot happen. Even a flawed system, even a system based on nepotism, you cannot ignore a person who did research, who published something, who did thesis, knowing maybe not 100%, 60, 50% of that thesis when it is confirmed that this person did this thesis, he knows about the problem, he correctly addressed it, and he resolved it, and these were its findings, I don't think there can be any board in this world, any selection board, which will reject that candidate. That I'm talking about public sector universities. In private sector universities, the criteria is quite streamlined, very good criteria in most of the universities, and people go, yes, there are people who will be selected who are not on merit. There can be problems, but a person having a skill, having a knowledge, I don't see any university in Islamabad. There are around 30 plus universities in Islamabad where positions are not laying vacant. Every university is saying, we need people in this area, we need people in finance, we need people in marketing, we need people in project management, we need people even in HR or virtual behavior. And the people who have got these degrees, they say there are no vacancies in these universities. So where is the problem? The problem is that they completed PhD without knowing that what they are doing. So once you are in front of a panel and once you are trying to maybe defend yourself, then if you don't know about these things, I think it can be problematic. So I'll be moving ahead and try to wrap up things now. I think the time we're getting a bit late. These are just the discussions that how we can conduct some interview and what are the techniques for interview. These are important, 2 important slides, and then I'll conclude. I think different things are left. Maybe we can do these things tomorrow if time permits, but tomorrow main focus will be on analysis. And people who are raising a hand, I'll just take some questions as well. But this is these 2 slides, like the previous one, are important. Just look at the process of data collection and analysis in qualitative research. So if I started from here, the first thing is that the researcher collects the data using any field, either he has got field notes or transcriptions or optically scanned material. That is the first step in data collection and qualitative research. And then after this step, we go for researcher prepares the data for analysis, transcribes field notes, and then researcher reads through data, obtain general sense of material. This is again a very important step where researcher has to be involved in this data collection process. It's not like quantitative data that you have got data from 500 people and you're just simply analyzing it. You have to read it in detail and develop a sense what people tried to say, what basically they said. What is the general perception? What when I recall when I collected data, when I conducted interviews of different industry experts from Chamber of Commerce and other people, that in which fields you think that women currently are working in your province, and which are the fields where they should go, or there are more opportunities. So once I collected data after 3 or 4 days, I just try to recall all the interviews in my mind, that what they said, and ultimately I try to read at some point that, okay, most of the people, they are consensus on these areas, and then I read the information which basically I got transcribed, and it was, although interviews were recorded, now it was in front of me in written form, and then I try to relate that what I tried to link psychologically or theoretically. I thought that these can be the areas which should be linked, and this is something which people said. So you have to make sense of these things, and afterwards the researcher codes the data, locates text segments and assigns a code to label them. That we'll learn tomorrow in NVivo exercise, and then codes a text for description to be used in the research reports, codes a text for theme to be used in research reports. So either you have to describe it in research report in description form, or based on this thing, you develop theme. So Recently, the research which we conducted on the COVID stigma, we went for the right side option. We developed, I guess, if I can exactly recall, 6 different themes of COVID-related stigma based on those 12 interviews, and 6 themes emerged. I think there was my professional recognition in the field, and how my people living in my neighbors, how they will think about this thing, and so on. So 6 main themes emerged out of those interviews. So this is a common method for data collection and how to analyze it. And then if we look at the coding process, how themes are developed. Initially, we have got many pages when we do qualitative research. Let's say if we have conducted interviews and there were 12 or 20 interviews, and each interview was 2 or 3 hours long, and you can imagine that how many pages can be there on which when that interview is transcribed and the information is spread over these pages. So initially read through data, and then many segments of text, divide text into segments of information that we'll again learn tomorrow in NVivo workshop, and then label segments of information with codes. So you have to develop a code with each segment. Okay, this was something about, this code is for the people in my surrounding, how they feel about this disease. This is about my colleagues, how they feel about this. This is about my patients, how they feel about this disease, and so on. So each segment has got a different code. But these codes are to be reduced, because you cannot have a meaningful information with 40 or 50 codes. Reduce overlap and redundancy of codes. So there can be certain things which you feel will be similar. Okay, if I'm talking about my colleagues and my boss and these things, maybe I can just call this these codes, I can relate it to one code, that what my peers or my colleagues think about this thing. And ultimately, we have to collapse the codes into themes. This is a very important step in qualitative research, that these codes, normally, the best strategy is, I think, 5 themes are sufficient. But in cases where you feel that the information was quite diverse and maybe it cannot be captured or completed with 5, so you should not go for more than 7 themes. And whenever you see any good research in qualitative research, if the themes are developed and based on that thing the study is concluded, you won't find more than 7, I don't know if I can remember 8 or 9 themes. Maybe there are some studies, but good studies go for quality research journals in qualitative research domain. In those, you won't find more than 5 to 7 themes. Then there's a discussion, what are themes? Now we're running shortage of time as well as there, but themes are basically categories of information. Mainly people, when they discussed about the issue, and most of the people, there are different techniques for even developing themes, and we even go for words as well. How many total words were there in any interview? Total words were there, which words were most common, repeated most, and so on. So it will indicate that these were something which majority, or if 12 interviews were there, then maybe majority, this was something which everybody discussed. So the most important themes, 5 to 7, which were there in discussion, that you basically have to extract from this discussion. And here NVivo helps you ultimately to sort out the data, to develop those themes, and ultimately to give you some meaningful information that what actually you can conclude. And if you have seen those pictures in different words are there, and small and bold words are there. These basically indicate different themes which actually emerged out of that study. So these are different computer programs which are available for qualitative analysis, Atlas TI and 6 NVivo and Max QDA. I have used personally, I did analysis in NVivo only. I plan that we will conduct some workshops on other softwares as well. But NVivo is, I think, quite good and comprehensive. There are certain limitations with this software, but most of the issues of qualitative research, they can be resolved, or you can, I think, do a good analysis if you use NVivo. So NVivo is just a software. Definitely other softwares can be used, but tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be focusing on this NVivo and all the discussion which we did today, that once the data is there, how you develop codes, how you develop themes, and out of those themes, how ultimately the result come, and ultimately how you analyze it. So this was slide number, I guess, this was slide number 28 of 40. So 12 slides are left where we have to discuss certain things. Maybe tomorrow, if we find time, we can discuss. I think we have reached at a logical conclusion. We are discussing the softwares, and tomorrow we'll be going for the software analysis. So I think this is the right time to conclude my presentation here. And now different questions are there. Some people are texting in chat as well, and some people, they have raised hands as well. So I'll take 3 or 4 questions, because it's already 8:50 here, and then tomorrow, inshallah, we will start again with NVivo. So I'll unmute your mics now. Just a moment. And now you can ask questions.
Hi, Dr. Bashir. Sorry,
Hello.
Can I just ask you a quick question?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay, so one question is regarding the philosophy, which I will probably just text it to you, and if you can let me know later. But the other question is, I know that in qualitative research, we are not looking for strictly correlations and things like that. We're exploring phenomena, or we're exploring an event or something. Still, you brought up the question of education and how a person can be educated and still behave illiterate, etc. So sometimes things like education, sometimes things like age, sometimes things like whether you're living in a city or in a village can impact the way your answers. How do these concepts of moderators and mediators play out in qualitative research? I know it's not strictly moderator or mediator, but how do they play out?
Definitely. Basically, when we try to relate it with the context, in a specific context, and when we are analyzing the data, then in most of the situation, even when we are developing themes, we have to give this information as well, and we have to give even when we are reporting results for these themes, we have to give some representative statements as well. And in that representative statements, in most of the cases, you have to tell 2 or 3 things very important. Number one, for a specific person for whom you are reporting his some statement or words, what was gender, what was the age, and even what was the education. Because these few lines, you have to relate with these 3 factors as well. So that gives you a reflection. And in most of the cases, when we are reporting some theme or information about some issue, when we present information, we give statements of 2 or 3 individuals. And these 2 or 3 individuals, ideally, there should be a sort of diversity, maybe gender-wise, age-wise, and even education-wise, and even if some sort of ethnicity is related or some other phenomena which is of interest. So you can see the difference in these statements, and based on these differences, we ultimately try to figure out or find out that, okay, this difference can be because of gender, this difference can be because of it. Definitely, like in quantitative analysis, we cannot have a moderation that whether it is strengthening or weakening. So from there, we try to develop a sense out of that information that how this thing might be affecting, but it cannot be, I don't think it can be correctly quantified. We should not use word here, but it cannot be assessed up to that level like we use in quantitative analysis.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Any other
Excuse me, sir. Can you?
Just a moment. I think I should go.
Can I ask a question?
With the sequence of people who have raised their hands. That is a norm in classes as well when we are taking class. The next person should ask question is Mr. Muhammad Akmal. If you have a question, I should be moving ahead. So no question. Next, if I'm correctly pronouncing the name, the second part is Saxena. So can you have your question, please? Okay. Next question from Ms. Hafsa Nasir.
Hello, sir. Sir, I want to ask a question. Do you not think that, as you mentioned, the PhD level or a master level student can doing research? Do you not think that the bachelor level student can also doing research?
That again is something debatable. Even we debate this thing in universities as well, that which type of expectations we should have from bachelor's level student. My personal opinion or perception is that even at bachelor's level, we should teach students the basics of research. Even we teach in business studies, we teach them research methods course. But generally, the way the courses are designed, the objective is just to tell the student what is research, what is basic applied research, and so on. And they're not expected to do research. But my philosophy is a bit different. I think if people, they can do at bachelor's level, if they can do good research, they should be encouraged, because the other school of thought, they say that at bachelor's level, the objective, the student should consume knowledge, they should not be involved in generating knowledge. I think that point is logical, but if students have got potential and if they are willing to do, I have got some bachelor's level students who publish in very good journals. So I think if you have got interest and aptitude in doing good research, you should attempt it even at bachelor's level as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Next question is by Ms. Sabah Sheikh.
Welcome, sir. Sir, I want to ask that the experience or the personality characteristics of the researcher can affect the qualitative research or not, because it involves the direct involvement of the researcher in a whole process.
Yes, this is the main objection on qualitative research. The modernist or the positivist, whenever they raise concerns on qualitative research, this is their probably objection number one. They say the main strength of positivism is that it is totally, the researcher is sort of out of this data process, the data, because as per their opinion, reality, it lies externally. So the data is telling everything, it is guiding, and researcher has nothing to do there. While in qualitative research, we have seen 5 traditions. I guess in every tradition, the researcher is there, even if he's doing ethnography or even he's going for phenomenology, he's there, and his personal biases, personality type, likes, dislike, aptitude, everything is there, and that definitely will affect the results. So this is a major observation or a sort of reservation on qualitative research, but there are methods which we use to reduce these effects. That's why we just we're discussing, we go for mixed methods. We collect quantitative, qualitative data at a time. Even for qualitative data, we go for different methods in one study. If possible, we conduct interviews, and also at the same time, we can go for observation as well. So even we try to reduce that thing, but this observation objection will always be there on qualitative method, that the results, yes, somehow they are biased, and you cannot exclude the researcher out of this thing. So his specific type of personality, even the field in which he is working, or his expertise or knowledge, everything is going to affect the results. Okay, the next question is from, the name is M.A. Khan.
Thank you, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, actually, I have quick two questions. One is about, is it possible that that all types of research, qualitative research, can be fixed into the five traditions that you have just described and discussed? Because I have read in some thesis that they are unable to, maybe the researcher does not mention, he simply said that it was a qualitative research instead of tagging it under any of these traditions. And so is it possible that we can have a open qualitative research maybe as a methodology instead of any of these designs? Second, from your experience, because you've widely published, so this question is about the data analysis and actually reporting side. How much data, qualitative data, should be quoted? Because in research paper there is very limited space, and in thesis there is a lot of space. So I'm particularly concerned about the research, data into research papers, because this space is very limited. How much is enough?
Okay, I think both questions are very important and relevant. That whenever we are doing research, whether we should label the tradition, maybe even if you are not labeling it and you're not specifically written in your research that I'm using ethnography, that thing is reflected in your research, how you collected data, how you analyze it. So maybe, and even the good researchers, they won't mention it in their study, that it is good to mention it, but at least whatsoever tradition you are following, it should be followed totally, fully. There should, I use the word, you should not jump from one to another. So if you have not mentioned that it is the narrative tradition, but if you have used all the data collection, analysis, and all the techniques which are relevant to narratives, then I think that is sufficient. Then even by using the word qualitative research, I think that will suffice and there will be no objection on it. But at least the researcher must know it. That is important. The second thing is about how we should report the results and how much space we should use. That, I think, technique is exactly the same which we use in quantitative research, because in research paper, the choice is not yours, the choice is of the journal. So when you read the instructions to the authors, so I just, the paper I was just discussing, and I submitted that paper in the journal. The requirement was that the paper should not exceed 4,000 words. Now you can imagine you're having a qualitative study, but if you exceed 4,000, they will simply return the paper with these comments that you should reduce the size because it's a policy of the journal. So in that case, the researcher has to decide that what I should report, what are the most important. If let's say for a particular theme, if I'm trying to, let's say, write some statement as an example of someone, what should be the length of that statement, what is the most important part of that interview is on 10 pages, which are the most important lines which I should quote here. But thesis gives you liberty. If it's a PhD thesis and you are supposed to write 80,000 words, then even in methodology, you can write a lot about this thing, that what people said, different themes and different representative statements. So you can give a lot of detail. So that I don't think is a choice of researcher. That is the limitation. What the journals put or what the universities they describe in their instructions, you should try to strictly follow that and logically present in the information which is the most relevant or important one.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Mubashir Ahmed. Mr. Mubashir, there is some problem. I think we cannot hear you correctly. Okay, if you are connected, maybe try to connect again. We can ask again if you are there. Mr. Rauf. Question by Mr. Rauf.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
So, sir, I'm basically from the University of Jammu. As I have published more than 20 papers, all the papers are published in quantitative aspects. So I'm new in the field of qualitative aspect.
Okay.
So, sir, what is the best approach to publish in qualitative, whether it's an ethnographic approach or we can say grounded approach? So which one is the best to publish in qualitative aspects, ethnographic or grounded?
I don't think there is a some sort of precise answer to this question that which is the best approach. All the approaches are there, commonly used. That again will depend which type of problem you are trying to look into. Even the papers which you have published in quantitative domain, try to sort of think about those problems differently. That if you require a detailed data about the same problem, let's assume you are you have published paper on deviant workplace behavior, employee deviance at workplace. So if you have collected data that what is the effect of deviance on employees' performance or organizational performance, just try to explore in detail what actually is meant by deviance, what people in the organizations, what they think deviance is, and why they go for this behavior. And you can maybe have a sort of narrative study in which you can conduct interviews, or in some other studies maybe you can have some sort of observation. Interview is a relatively common method in qualitative research, so you should start from interview method, and then gradually you should move ahead. So the areas on which you have already got knowledge and you have published papers, try to focus on some area and explore that area in detail through interviews. I think that can be the best methodology.
Thank you. Thanks so much, sir.
Welcome. Mohammad Fayaz Khan Sahab. Question by Mr. Mohammad Fayaz. Walaikum salam.
Sir, as you have, first of all, thank you very much for your very informative session regarding qualitative research. Sir, as you had discussed in your this session, that the trend is toward the quantitative approach in Pakistan. So I had also a research on quantitative approach. Now I am new in the qualitative approach. I have two questions. The first question is that how can we measure the reliability of qualitative research? And the second question is that can we measure the strength of the relationship between the variables in qualitative research? So these are the two questions.
We can measure, but we normally are not interested in qualitative research about the relationships, because we're trying to describe something, phenomenon. I think initially I've shown you a slide as well. Although even through interviews you can measure these things, but then that is not that doesn't, I think, come within the sort of scope of qualitative research. Here we are more interested for in-depth analysis of some issue or problem. Then we want to find out that what actually is happening there and how to relate it or what are the outcomes. So I think if you are more interested in finding out relationship, then I think the best methodology is to go for quantitative research. As far as reliability and validity is concerned, I think qualitative studies are much more reliable and valid than quantitative studies, because in quantitative studies, the methods or techniques which we use, if you are familiar with those techniques, for example, if specifically if we go for validity and we go for the type of validity like discriminant and convergent validity, when there are many variables and we are concerned that how they're discriminant or different from each other, when you have got just one variable, you will be more concerned about that particular variable and the information which you are collecting for that variable, how much that information is reliable and valid. So when you have reached to the source, practically maybe met that person or observed that phenomena. So there are techniques which we'll discuss, I hope, tomorrow as well. What the people in qualitative research or experts of qualitative research, what they claim is the main strength of qualitative research is that it is the information is more reliable and valid. It is not the generic thing that you have collected data from 500 people and simply you say it is reliable and valid. Here, for each individual, the researcher individually contacted that person, interviewed that person, and obtained that information, and then developed different themes and information. So this information or this is more reliable and valid. And we'll also discuss the techniques as well.
Okay, sir. As for quantitative research, we need to operationalize the construct. So can we do it in a qualitative research, because some constructs are there that we cannot operationalize it? Then I think if you have the constructs like that, we cannot operationalize it, and still we want to measure the relationship. For example, I just want to give you an example of one of my colleagues here in Italy. He is doing his research on building an entrepreneurial ecosystem, and there he wants to develop the relationship between the drivers of the entrepreneur ecosystem. And the drivers he took are, for example, the government policies. The second one is culture of the region. The third one is human capital. And there are some other variables. No, he is in the position that some constructs are operationalizable and some are not. And he is investigating that what are the most influential drivers to build ecosystem. So in that case, what would be the right approach?
I think you are answering your question yourself. The best method is qualitative research. Qualitative research is basically meant for such issues where you cannot quantify them, you cannot correctly operationalize them, you don't have an idea that how to define them, which factors are there which produce this phenomena. So even when we are developing a scale for some variable and at initial stage when we are going for item generation and item development, normally we go for a qualitative approach. When we meet different experts, we ask them questions that what is your opinion about this phenomena, how you think it, what are its characteristics, and so on. So at this stage, I think the best approach is qualitative. He should use qualitative approach to mainly operationalize it, develop its main concept, and then definitely, normally we're using mixed methods. Initially, we can go for a qualitative approach, and then we can use a quantitative approach, and combining both, we can easily operationalize any variable.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. The second part of the question, the first is very much clear. Thank you very much. The second part is that then how can we measure what are the most influential drivers which can help out in order to develop the ecosystem? For example, wants to find out the magnitude, the strength of the relationship.
I think if you are on WhatsApp group, you can text me, or I can discuss this thing in detail, because maybe other audience, they might not be interested in this thing. So you can email me or WhatsApp me, then I can discuss in detail that how to develop the attributes and what can be done here. Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
The last question by Mr. Asad Farooqi.
Assalamualaikum, sir.
Walaikum salam.
Sir, there was two questions. There is a slide named the qualitative tradition. So these are the tradition like grounded theory, ethnography, and case study. So these are we can say that these are the methods or approach towards the qualitative study. We can say that.
I think the best word again is tradition, or the alternative word, if you're trying to use, these are the approaches, different approaches to which we can use qualitative research.
Okay. And second question is, sir, always I used to listen that the theories which we use in quantitative, like social exchange theory and AMO model, like whatever theory, these comes from the qualitative research. So the grounded theory is basically used, means any theory like SET. So these comes from the grounded theory. Actually, if you understand my question.
Yes, yes, I can understand. Basically, it depends. It's not necessary. Different theories, the theorists, when they developed those theories, they use different approaches, and we have got very good theories in which were developed using grounded theory approach. But that technique is not very common. Because the theory, when someone is developing for grounded theory, you have to initially collect data and then you move ahead. Many theorists, they don't use this method, and they develop a theory based on different other sources of information. But there are certain theories, modern day theories, which people developed using the grounded theory approach. In most of the cases, this technique is not used, especially in the most popular theories. The theories which they developed those theories, they did not use the grounded theory approach.
Okay, right, sir. Thank you.
Okay, Ji. Thank you very much, everyone.
Just 1 minute, just one last thing. Your Research Bethak Official 3, your WhatsApp group, is that the one that's called Research Bethak Official 3?
Yes, there are 3 groups. In fact, we started first one, then it was sort of totally failed, then second, now third is also. So these 3 groups are there in which we exchange every information about workshops. Currently, in coming weeks, I think every week we'll be having one workshop on different topic. We have planned in such a way.
Sure. Just the thing is that in that group, I can't, it says only admins can send messages.
Yes, but you can text anything to admin. The number is there. So people, whatsoever information they require, you can have that number and you can test. Because if we open it for chat, then everybody is disturbed with different messages. That's why we have not opened that provision.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ji, tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be having a session by Dr. Nida. Nida, are you there? Can you hear me? Dr. Nida Abbas, I think she was there. Maybe she just... So tomorrow, she'll be explaining the basics of in vivo. I have shared in those groups some links as well to download the trial version of in vivo and other things. So she'll be explaining about the whole process, that after conducting interview, we have got some examples of interviews practically in which we collected data. Nida basically did PhD 2 years back with me, and she also worked in 2 or 3 very good projects in which she collected data in qualitative research and published those reports as well. So from that actual projects, we have got that data, that how interviews were conducted and how the data were collected and how themes were actually developed, and then how the reports were published and what were the final conclusions. So we will take those examples in detail. So I think everybody who attended today's session must attend tomorrow's session, so we can practically see that how in vivo works. That again will be introductory session in detail. maybe we can have all workshops which we are conducting. We are noting down the responses of the participants, that in which domain people they have shown interest, that now we need detailed workshop, and maybe we can have 3 or 4 days workshop in that area. So I know qualitative research also requires a detailed workshop. So after maybe a few weeks or months, we will also arrange a detailed workshop in this domain as well. So inshallah, tomorrow we'll be meeting again at 6 p.m. Pakistan Standard Time. So you should adjust your time accordingly as per your local area. Inshallah, we'll meet at 6 p.m. 7th June. Thank you very much for patiently listening for more than 3 hours. Normally students, they get bored after 1.5 class. So I today was lucky to find very good participants who kept listening me. Even currently there are 74 participants, and initially there were around 160 participants. So that is an encouragement for me as well, that you are listening from 6 p.m. to 9:20 p.m. Thank you very much. Inshallah, see you tomorrow, everyone.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.
Thank you, sir. Allah Hafiz.
Allah
Hafiz, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
इजाजत है सर?
जी रफीक, अल्लाह हाफिज। आज तो आप बड़े खामोशी से बैठे रहे।
जी जी सर, आज तो हमारे
सर नहीं है, बहुत सारे लोग, मैं अभी पहली बार अटेंड कर रहा हूँ। सो मैंने अपना नंबर आपको सेंड किया है, कोई तरीकेकार बता दीजिए कैसे है उसको ज्वाइन करना है।
अच्छा, उसका यहाँ पे लिंक रफीक आप शेयर कर सकते हैं अभी, अगर कोई देर नहीं हुई तो। आपको मुझे पता है
नहीं सर, नहीं सर, कोई इशू नहीं।
आप व्हाट्सएप का जो है ना वो ऑफिशियल 3 ग्रुप है, उसका लिंक चैट में मैं ओपन कर देता हूँ। करेक्ट।
नहीं सर, उसका मेरे पास भी नहीं है, वो ऑफिशियल 3 वाला जो है। यस सर, वो मेरे पास।
अच्छा, 1 मिनट जी वेट करें, जिनको उसका चाहिए मैं कुछ देख रहा हूँ, मुझे उसका अगर मिल जाए।